This is I Watched It So You Don't Have To, Love is Blind, Season 7. And I am absolutely doing this because a singular person asked me to. So we're opening up the season in my personal stomping grounds, the DMV, the Washington, D.C. area. Let's meet the singles. We start with Brittany, who is kind of a self-avowed trophy wife. Maybe a little bit of a gold digger. She's not a 50-50 girl. Like, she does not believe in splitting things 50-50 with her partner. And honestly, personally, I feel like she might be putting on like a little bit of a show. Then we have Hannah, who is a little bit bigger. She is mid-size. And I only mention it because she says without saying multiple times through the first few episodes that it is a big insecurity of hers. She's a former cheerleader from West Virginia who was like the type of person who dated the quarterback in high school. And it's really giving that she like never quite lost the freshman 15 in college and has been dubious about her dating potential ever since. She's also the youngest in the group at 26. Then we have Taylor. From her first appearance on camera, it's clear that she's very conscious that she's on TV. She keeps looking at the cameras in basically every scene I've seen her in so far, and I feel like she's really like hyper aware of how she's being perceived. Then we have Alex, who I have nothing to say about except that she's a Leo, and Ashley A, who again, her personality doesn't really show, but she seems sweet. For the men, we start off meeting Garrett, who is a physicist. He is like, if you picture in your mind the word white male scientist who fishes and does a lot of like outdoor activities, that's exactly who this person is. Like an in-shape Ross from Friends. We have Leo, who is an art dealer and my nemesis, everyone's nemesis. I'm not going to be weird about it, like I'm not going to send him stuff, but I don't like him and he makes me uncomfortable. He spends all this time talking about how he doesn't want to be judged for his money, but then never shuts up about the fact that he has money. To be fair to him, it could just be the edit. Like, he has other stuff going on in his life, clearly. He has faced a lot of tragedy in his life, losing both his parents and his step-parents and his grandparents all within 3 years. But all he's seen talking about on camera is his money. We have Tim, who is a Virgo, which means I immediately do not trust him. He's the type of person to buy a shirt to spite a girl who he isn't even officially dating yet. So can tell he's really going to be a gem on this show that is all about marriage. He also keeps bringing up the fact that like in his younger years, he was a dog. I was a dog. I had that dog in me. Okay. And Tyler, I don't really get a sense of him, but he seems pretty smooth. And finally, there is Nick D. He is a former football player. He actually got injured, so he was no longer able to play football. And he just has that vibe of like, though if you grew up in the DMV, I think you know what I mean. Those white guys who played sports and were like good friends with all the black guys on the sports team. And at first you're like, is he a fuckboy? What's going on with him? But actually he literally is just like no thoughts, head empty. Like the most straightforward person in the world. That's what Nick D gives to me. So getting into the episode, the first singles who immediately hit it off are Ashley A and Tyler. She's Ashley A because there's another Ashley in the pods, but I don't think the other Ashley makes it out of the pods. There isn't really much to say about their connection. They just kind of like seem like they like each other. Then we meet Nick D, who, like I said before, is the guy who used to play football. He immediately gives all the girls a kind of like fuckboy energy. He's really smooth talking. He always knows what to say. He's like trying to charm them. And a lot of them are skeptical of him at best. Even with the skepticism though, Nick seems to really hit it off with Hannah initially. They bond over the fact that he used to play football. She used to be like a cheerleader and used to date the quarterback in high school. She even says at some point like he would be her Travis Kelce and she would be the Taylor Swift. So they're flirting. Hannah also has dates with Leo, the art dealer, and Leo goes really hard for her. He's like, there's no time to waffle around. This experiment is so short. I gotta tell you, I really like you. And she seems to like that he really likes her, even if we don't... I didn't get a sense of whether she really liked him or not. Leo also hits it off with Brittany, who seems like the exact opposite of the type that he said that he was looking for when he went into the experiment. He talks about how he doesn't want to date someone who just wants him for his money. Brittany, in her talking heads, keeps talking about how she's dated a lot of guys who have had a lot of money, and she used to be in relationships where she was like really taken care of. She's used to being the star of the relationships, and she's used to being with guys who are able to support her lifestyle. So it's a little weird that Leo is going for her, but he seems like he likes Hannah more. Then we have Garrett and Taylor, who hit it off. They're obviously going to be the first couple getting engaged. Like, they are just like flirting. They're really vibing. Garrett's a Taurus, Taylor's a Pisces, classic compatibility. Like, it's going to happen. Alex and Tim also hit it off, and I'm scared. A Leo Virgo relationship can work, but a Virgo man is just so... And like, the thing that they hit it off on immediately is trauma. They're bonding through trauma. We see that a lot in Love is Blind relationships, but we also see that it does not work in a lot of Love is Blind relationships. I'm remembering Zeneb and Cole from season 2 or 3, I think. Like, she was telling him all about her family tragedy. He was like, oh my god, I love this girl. The other girl he was interested in didn't share anything with him, and then he ends up going with Z and things don't work out. It's because they're bonding on something that is superficially emotional, not like actually emotionally revealing. And it is sad stuff, right? Like, both of Alex's parents have MS. I don't know if that's hereditary, but she might end up having MS. Her dad is being taken care of by her stepmom, and her mom had gotten abandoned by her partner when her diagnosis started to like progress. And Tim lost both of his sisters, his only siblings, at a very young age. So they've both been through a lot, and they can connect on like family tragedy, but what are they actually connecting on that is like personal to them, if that makes sense? Tim also says, I don't want to get married, I want to die married, which, classic Virgo, it's one of those things that sounds profound on the surface, but you think about it and it's like, you can die married to anyone. It doesn't have to be the first person you marry. It could be the 7th person you marry. You're gonna die married. So like, what does that even really mean? Taylor asks Garrett what movie he thinks she is, and he says Shrek 2, which is, I don't think what a girl wants to hear. But it ends up being prescient because later on, when Garrett and Taylor are talking about their family backgrounds, Taylor is describing how much she loves her parents. She says her dad's name, but then she reveals that she doesn't want to say her mom's name because she thinks it will give away her ethnicity. And there's that whole thing in Shrek 2 of Fiona being kind of like, not ashamed necessarily, but like scared to go back home to where she came from because of what she looks like now and like her background. I don't know. I see the connection. But Garrett says that he has never dated anyone who isn't white. And it's kind of shocking to him, I think, that Taylor isn't white. And he ends up revealing that he thinks she's kind of calculated. Like, he understands that they're on TV, I think, but he's like, I feel like you are thinking really carefully about everything that you're saying and you're not being 100% upfront with me, and I don't even really know what you look like, so I just kind of want you to be more like revealing. Taylor says that her motivation behind not wanting to reveal her ethnicity is that she wants to see if someone can really just like her for her and not for any preconceived notions, which I kind of get. And at the end of it, Garrett decides he doesn't want to know what she looks like at all. He wants to go with the experiment with her, and Taylor agrees that she is going to be more revealing. Unfortunately, I'm going to have to make a part 2. The sun very rudely decided to go away, so I have to put my daylight lamp on so I can see what I'm doing. I don't know what anybody else thinks about this, but I get the feeling that Taylor's ethnicity has been like a point of contention in past relationships. And part of the reason she was interested in this experience was so that she could see what dating would be like for her without that immediate barrier. I find Taylor fascinating. I think she's an enigma, and I'm going to be interested to see and learn more about her over the course of the season. Brittany is talking to Leo, and she reveals that her mother died. She says about her mother's death, sometimes I just think about how painful that must have been for her, And I say to myself, well, if she can do that, then I can do this. And my question is, if she can die, then you can do whatever. How does that make sense? She is literally dead. Talking about how incredibly lucky he was to grow up well off. Like, sir, if you don't want girls to date you for what you have, stop talking about what you have. It defeats the purpose. And a huge red flag to me is that Leo says that he loves how curious Hannah is. Like, he says, I could be explaining something about art and she would be like, oh, wow, that's so cool. That's not a conversation, sir. Like, that's a presentation. That's you professing to her. Like, go be a teacher if you want to teach people. Tyler talks more about his family background, and we learn that his mother is Serbian, and she was actually disowned by her father for having Black children. He also lost his grandmother at a young age, and his grandmother was like helping out the family, and so he saw his mom struggle a lot when he was a kid. The thing that I think is different about Tyler and Ashley A sharing things that they've gone through and Tim and Alex sharing things that they've gone through is that Tyler and Ashley A kind of had that like foundation first. They knew each other, they knew that they liked each other, they were like getting to know each other, and then they started sharing. Whereas I feel like Tim and Alex, the sharing was just like out the gate, and then they formed the connection through the sad shit, not like with each other, if that makes sense. Leo is torn between Hannah, who he really likes, and Brittany, who reminds him of his exes. And Tyler actually ends up saying something really prescient, at least in my opinion, to him. He says, like, if Brittany reminds you so much of your exes, like, you could just go date someone. The reason that we are here doing this experiment is to find something else. And he's like, if I had the girl that I'm falling in love with, if I had met her outside, I wouldn't have given her the time of day. You're talking to someone who you know you would give the time of day outside. So like, what is the point of that? Try something new. Hannah is really torn on her feelings for Nick D. All the girls are kind of trying to tell her like Nick D is a fuckboy. We all talked to Nick D. We think he's kind of like superficial, whatever. She's saying like, I like him, but I don't believe anything that he says. He definitely objectifies me. I don't think he would go for me in the outside world. I don't think he's going to be attracted to me. But she's like still going for him. And she seems really concerned about like what he would think about how she looks, when like the entire point of going to Love is Blind is that he doesn't know that. Like, I just don't understand. Meanwhile, on the men's side, Nick D is talking about how Hannah is his number one, and it ruffles Leo's feathers, clearly. Leo seems to have made a pact with himself that he's not going to tell anyone who he's talking to, so he can kind of like keep it secret. Hannah goes into her date with Nick D basically ready to break up with him because all of the girls are telling her to break it off. She says that she has a lot of concerns about him. She feels like she can't believe a word that he's saying. She's like, you keep talking about how excited you are to see me in a bikini. Like, what if you don't like how I look in a bikini? She doesn't say that, but like, just say it. Like, if you're gonna say it, just say it. You know what I mean? And even just the way that she's talking, like all of the feelings that she has for both Nick and Leo seem to be based off of how they would feel about her. She ends up breaking it off with Nick D. She's like, I just think you would break my heart. I can't do this. I don't want to get hurt, whatever. Only for her to go into the women's quarters and immediately find out that Brittany is also talking to Leo. So she's like, well, Leo was my number one. Didn't know he had another connection with another girl. Fuck me. And that is where episode 1 leaves off. Follow for more Love is Blind summaries and watch the next one to figure out how I'm going to blend this fucking contour out. We have more singles to meet. This episode, we meet Marissa, who I can't really get a read on. Like, I don't really have anything to say about her. She has curly hair, she's pretty, and she seems really nice. And also Monica, who is kind of she says herself that she was kind of self-centered and shallow, dating guys who she really only had a physical connection with, and then she would realize later on, like, we are not compatible at all, so that's why she's interested in being on Love is Blind. This is blending like shit. We meet Steven, who says that he is huge on communication and emotional intelligence. And whenever I hear a man use therapy terms, I get sirens blaring in my head. Like, I hate that we gave men the internet. I hate that they have access to that stuff and can just like figure out exactly what the right words to say are for things. We also meet Bowden, who was born in the Ukraine and raised in the US. He clearly has a chip on his shoulder about being perceived a certain way because of him being a white man. He has definitely said the term white cisgendered male before, giving very Tom Sandoval. Oh God, he actually is giving Tom Sandoval and he kind of looks like him. And then there is Ramses, who is as socially aware as he looks and seems like he really hates the sand. We open with Monica and Steven. Monica says that she's always drawn to flaws. What? Steven says that he's cheated, or at least technically cheated, depending on your definition of cheating. He DM'd a girl with the full intention of having sex with her. Is that not cheating? I'm here wondering what there is to root for with him, but I guess we'll find out because Monica seems to like him. The way I read Monica's response is that she has a history of forgiving cheaters. She comes at Steven with way too much compassion. She's like, well, you know, when we make mistakes, then we realize that it was a mistake and we're never going to do it again and blah, blah, blah. He's manipulating you, girl. Revealing that information out the outset, he's basically telling you, I will cheat on you at some point, and trying to figure out if you will forgive him. And you're saying to him, oh, and I will forgive you at some point. No, run away. I don't know if contour is for me, y'all. Oh, I forgot to say this while I was summarizing the last episode, but Hannah and Leo have been talking about how they're twin flames. What the fuck? You keep using that word. I do not think you know what it means. That's from Princess Bride, for anyone wondering why I was randomly doing a Spanish accent. Just being like really weird to me. They're both acting like they're each other's number one, knowing good and goddamn well that they have other people that they are like just as interested in. Then we go to Brittany and Leo. Brittany says that she regrets blurting out that they were seeing each other because she's a big believer in evil eyes. And honestly, I feel like that's the smartest thing she's said so far. Like, yeah, you should be a big believer in evil eyes. She seems like the type of person who like people plot on her downfall a lot, and she kind of like doesn't really know that it's happening. Leo calls love the L word because he's a goddamn man-child, and he keeps talking about how it's hard for him to say because he realizes how important it is and blah, 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 blah. Based off of the editing, it seems like Brittany was really looking for him to like give her validation and be like, oh, I love you, and he was like not ready to do that yet. My personal opinion is that he is really just basking in the glory of having two girls be interested in him at the same time. He seems like one of those people who you give him a little bit too much attention and he's absolutely going to run with it. Hannah unbreaks up with Nick because she realizes that she actually is really still into him. I say I don't think contour is for me, and then I continue to put more contour on. She said breaking up with him just didn't feel right, to which I say, does anything feel right, mama? Because you keep saying things don't feel right. Nick don't feel right. Breaking up with Nick don't feel right. What is it? Hannah also says like a lot of I knows on her dates. I feel like she's really just like a go along to get along kind of girl. Like she'll just say anything and then think about how she actually feels about stuff later. She kind of reminds me of Heather from Real Housewives of Salt Lake City. It's a reference for anyone who watches that show. I got into it this year. Rissa and Bowden have their first date, and their first date on camera, and Bowden tells a story about almost being killed by a camel in Kuwait. I think they are both ex-military. Like she's ex-Navy, he's ex-military or Army, and whatever. Marissa also has a date with Ramses, the guy who has the Anakin Skywalker hair. On the date, she reveals that she doesn't really have a type and that she dated a conservative Trump supporter for like 3 years. That is information that you couldn't waterboard out of me, but you know, that's me, I guess. I continue to hate Tim and Alex. There's something about their connection that just feels very off to me, and it could just be the fact that they are a Virgo and a Leo, or it could just be the fact that he is a Virgo. I don't know, but something about it I don't like. Tim also used to be in the Navy. I'm wondering if there are any men on this cast except for Leo and Ramses who were not in the Navy. The military, sorry. Alex's grandfather was apparently a former secretary for the Nation of Islam and used to work really closely with Elijah Muhammad, and he has like photos with Muhammad Ali. Like, who is she? She was raised Catholic. Her grandfather was very against post-secondary education. I have so many questions about this girl. Tim just so happens to love Islam and Muhammad Ali and everything that Alex is talking about. He's very much a mirror. Like, whatever she says, he will be like, oh yeah, I have experience with that. And then she'll be like, well, actually it's this. And he'll be like, oh yeah, I love this too. Like, it's about wanting to be liked, not wanting to be seen, which is a theme for Virgos. My hair kept getting in my way. Taylor and Garrett get engaged, of course, first couple out, just like I predicted. And it's cute. Anyway, Ashley and Tyler bond and listen to some royalty-free R&B music together, and it's actually really sweet, and I kind of live for them. Now that we have the cute shit out of the way, let's go back to Steven and Monica. She asks him who he voted for in the last 2 elections, and he starts talking way too much. If you have to say more than 3 words, I voted Democrat or I voted for blank, you voted for Trump. And that's okay. Just say that. Do the explanations later, just say that. So Steven admits that he voted for Trump in 2016 because he hated Hillary. I mean, he's used to be military, so that's not super surprising. But then he immediately starts talking about his background. He's always identified as white, that's what he is. But he found out recently that his paternal grandfather was not Italian, as his grandmother said, but was in fact black. So like the father of his Republican dad, who raised him to be a Republican and vote for Trump, is actually a black person. And he keeps talking about how he's always identified as white, blah, blah, blah. Like, yeah, you're white, sir. It doesn't matter that you have 2C curls. Like, you are white. Your grandfather seemed to work very hard to make sure that you would be white. So you're white. Like, it's okay. Monica talks about being confused about which bubble to fill in on standardized tests. Is the confusion in the room with us, Mama? Have you looked in a mirror? I know race isn't all about phenotype, but like she says that her mom is Honduran, her mom's parents were a mixed race couple, and her dad is black. So what's confusing about that? Just bubble in black and of Hispanic or Latino descent. Like there's 2 separate questions about it. I don't understand. Like, what? Like, I get that definitions of race and ethnicity are constantly shifting. Latino is an imprecise categorization. Like, somebody told me that I was Latino because my family speaks Portuguese. What? However, I've also always been black. I've never been confused about the fact that I am black. I am black and my family speaks Portuguese. There's also a lot of black people in Honduras. I'm assuming that her grandparents were either a white Honduran and a black Honduran, or a white Honduran and a native Honduran. But regardless, your daddy is black and you look black. And in response to this story about her confusion, Steven calls her a mutt. Based off of how it was edited, it looks like she had said it herself originally, but like, the white man is talking to you about his ancestry DNA, how he voted for Trump in 2016, and then he called you a mutt? Monica, are you an idiot? Have you never seen Get Out? Their relationship feels like a microcosm of interracial dating in the DMV. You either end up with a super conscious white man or a Trump-supporting white man with like a fetish, and a black woman with some identity crisis. It's not giving Lauren and Cameron from season 1. I really don't see how this can end well. I was reeling after Monica and Steven, honestly, but here we are back again. Garrett and Taylor meet and it goes very well because she's gorgeous and he's not an idiot. Like, he's not gonna be like, oh, you're Asian, bye. Like, she's beautiful. Honestly, episode 3 is when the show started to feel like burdensomely boring and hard to get through. But I'm pushing through it for you. Marissa is talking to both Ramses and Bowden. I'm just not interested in that love triangle. It doesn't have any teeth. Bowden bores me, honestly. Like, on the surface level, they might have a lot in common. They were both in the military. That he used to be married. She's attracted to military men, whatever. But, like, there's no spark between them. It doesn't really seem like she's interested in the things that he has to say beyond the, like, superficial oh wows. And he seems like he likes her the most because he didn't like anybody else that much. Ramses, on the other hand, is really into Marissa and is clear about that. And Marissa seems like she's really into him too. Like, or at least more into him than she is into Bowden. And I have more support for that relationship than I do for her one with Bowden. It's just not interesting to me. Brittany is losing it about not being able to sexually seduce her way to winning over Leo. I think, like, underlying this, she sees herself as definitely the more physically viable option for him. Like, she can see Hannah, he can't see Hannah. I think she knows, like, if they were in a room together, the three of them, that Leo would definitely go for her. But the entire point of Love is Blind is that you don't do that. And so she's, like, not used to that. And it's hard for her to adjust. And I think it's because she can't win the way that she's used to winning. And honestly, I feel like Hannah is kind of living for the fact that she is fighting with her but stronger for this man. And I don't mean her but stronger in the sense that, like, Brittany is actually a prettier version of Hannah. I think they're both pretty in their own ways, but the way that people talk about and feel about weight, particularly women's weights, is very pathologized. And I think in the, like, social and sexual hierarchy, Brittany is absolutely much higher than Hannah, based solely off of the fact that she's thinner than her. And so, like, Hannah can kind of bask in the glory of knowing, like, this skinny bitch, I got this skinny bitch on the ropes for this guy who we're both interested in. I don't think Hannah's that interested in Leo. I think she's interested in how much Leo is interested in her, and also the fact that his other partner is a girl who is higher up on the sexual hierarchy than she is. And I feel this way because it seems like Hannah and Brittany are starting to be friends, but kind of in the way that girls will, like, become frenemies with their romantic rival. Like, I've been rewatching Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, and it's very, like, Rachel trying to become friends with Valencia. Brittany keeps begging Leo to say that she's his number one, and he keeps refusing. Tyler and Ashley get engaged on his birthday, and it's really cute. She, like, gets him a little cheesecake and balloons, and they're so cute to me. Like, they met each other, and it just felt black as fuck. Like, I just was like, this is so adorable. I think they're attracted to each other enough for it to work. Definitely feels like Ashley is not as attracted to Tyler as he is to her, but I feel like they can get there. And also, like, she might just be a reserved person, you know? So Nick D and Hannah tell each other that they love each other, and they decide that they are going to date exclusively. There's a lot of conversation that happens that gets them to this point. I'm just like, I'm not gonna lie to you, the conversations started to wear on me. I think for the most part, I just really don't find these people interesting, unfortunately, like most of them. And the ones who I did find interesting, like Ray, I thought Ray was cute and fun, no screen time. Like, there's a lot of talking, and I ended up putting some concealer just like here and back here. But there's a lot of talking this season that just is not interesting to me. Hannah goes back to the women's quarters and tells Brittany, and Brittany is really excited about it because she really likes Leo, and that means that Leo will be basically hers for the taking if he decides to go with her after Hannah breaks up with him. And they're, like, hugging each other and smiling. It's actually, like, a kind of cute girl moment. However, back in the men's quarters, Leo has finally decided, after, like, I don't know how long of waffling between Hannah and Brittany, that Hannah is the one for him. The guys, I think, are also tired of him waffling, and so he's talking to them, and they're like, if you just, like, without thinking about it, had to pick one of them, who would it be? And he says Hannah. And they're like, okay, that's your answer. He basically says, like, that he wishes that he was as into Brittany as Brittany is into him, but it's Hannah for him. So Leo has a date with Hannah next, and he's going into the room getting ready to ask her why she decided to, like, restart her connection with Nick D and basically tell her that she's his number one. Meanwhile, Hannah's going into the room getting ready to break up with Leo. So Hannah's opening line is there's this other guy and I love him. And Leo's like, what the fuck? I thought I had more time than this. And he basically loses it. He's like, if I had known how serious you were with someone else, I would have been doing whatever, saying I love you more, and like, I would have told you, blah, blah, blah. You didn't do any of that. So he's like coming after her, telling her like, why didn't you tell me how serious it was with this guy? I wish I had known, because if I had known. Meanwhile, like, you knew that they were together. Nick D would not stop talking about how much he liked Hannah. The fact that you took forever to figure out how you felt and you were too late is your fault. It's not hers. I put on some inner corner highlight and like filled in my brows. I used the color Bold Moves from the Huda Beauty. Yeah, Leo's being a fucking freak in that room with Hannah. He's like, if I had known all of this, blah, blah, blah. If I proposed to you right now, what would you say? Like, she basically told him, I'm in love with someone else and we're going to be dating exclusively. And he was like, okay, but is there any wiggle room on this? Dude, you are not negotiating the price of a like piece of art. You're talking to a human woman. No, there's no wiggle room. So Hannah is on the other side of that pod, just absolutely like feeling like shit. Which is so unnecessary because Leo has been playing the field. And just because he is losing one of his balls does not mean that she's like not allowed to go do the exact same thing that he's doing. I don't know. Honestly, I really dislike Leo. I think he's weird. He makes me uncomfortable. And his response to Hannah being like, I'm in another connection that I feel like is stronger is just so... This is clearly an only child who came from a wealthy family, as he has stated multiple times. This is the about face pencil and grounded. I love it. He's clearly not used to taking no for an answer, and Hannah is clearly not used to someone liking her this much. Also, like, if I was Brittany watching this back, I'd be like, what am I, chopped liver? Like, you were this upset about having to go with me? And the thing is, he doesn't have to go with her. He could leave right now if Hannah's not interested in him. But I have a feeling that he is going to feel like a loser if he goes home alone. And so he's just going to take Brittany as his consolation prize. Which sucks for Brittany because she's turned out to be a lot sweeter and more, like, caring than she initially seemed. I don't know, y'all. This season is weird. We're getting messy, y'all. We start this episode right where we left off in episode 3. Leo is in this room crying, like making a fool of himself over Hannah. Oh, by the way, this is the About Face Matte Fluid Eye Paint. I love this brand. He's like, oh my god, Hannah, I can't believe you're doing this to me, Hannah. Like, it's really crazy. It's also kind of embarrassing because it's almost like Brittany who, like, he is in here begging Hannah to, like, forgive him, quote unquote, and give him a chance and not go with Nick. And this whole time it's like, didn't you have 2 girls that you were stringing along? Like, why are you so desperate to be with Hannah all of a sudden now that you know that she's with someone? He's in there crying, sobbing, making Hannah cry, like berating her so badly. Like, I can't believe you would do this to me. Like, why didn't you tell me how serious you guys were? If I had known that you guys were this serious, I would have said blah, blah, blah. He's basically saying, like, if I had known what you wanted me to say, I would have said it. Like, I would have manipulated you in order to get what I want out of you. This scene goes on for entirely too long. Like, he basically gaslights her into admitting that she is still interested in him, and she's like interested in both him and Nick, and then she's like, I'm so tired, I gotta go to sleep, like, I can't do this anymore, let's talk about this tomorrow. And he's like, okay, that's fine. It continues to be boring because I think that she likes that Bowden likes her. I don't think that she likes Bowden himself. Which is good for her because apparently, based off of some insider tea that I have, Bowden sucks. It pays to be from the city where these things are taking place, man. From there, we go to Alex and Tim, who are having like a little sip and paint moment in their pod. Tim ends up giving Alex a very special piece of jewelry, his dead sister's bracelet. I met you a week ago. Here's my dead father's watch. I don't know if anybody else thought that that was weird. Like, that was kind of weird to me, personally. Regardless if they end up together, like, if they end up staying together, getting married, going to the altar, whatever, like, it's kind of weird. But Alex is a Leo, so of course she finds it very flattering. Look, Leos love to be praised. They love to feel special. They love to feel like they're having an all-access pass to something. It's doing its job for her. Back with Steven and Monica, Steven ends up proposing to Monica, gives her a whole speech. She gives him a whole speech. She's a Gemini. She's a yapper, you know, and he's a Cancer. He's manipulative. So, like, they're having their little conversation. She makes a point to say when she's accepting his proposal, like, I just thought it was so cool that you, like, found out that your dad was 20% black and you went to the library and you went to go find books about being African. Did you think it was so cool? Like, it's not like you've mentioned it about 89,000 times, and it's not like you mention it in your interview when you guys are about to meet. Like, she's so obsessed with the fact that he found out that he was black and he went to go do research on it. I'm sure he checked out one library book, and this has been a line that he's used ever since, but whatever. They get engaged. I don't think it's a good idea, but, you know, doesn't matter. This was filmed a year ago. Marissa is talking to Ramses, and she finds out that he is a Cancer Sun, Leo Moon, Leo Rising, and she gets, like, shockingly excited about it. I've never been that excited to find out that a man has a Leo moon, but she loves it. So they're like talking about astrology, whatever. She's so excited to hear what he has, and that is the clincher for her. That's when she knows, like, I want him, I don't want Bowden. Up to this point, I'm loving Ramses, okay? Like, he is so fun to me. I think he's, like, honest, he's principled. I like his chat, as they say on Love Island. I think he's really cute. So I'm excited that she is leaving Mr. Cisgendered male behind and going with the person who she seems to have more, like, organic chemistry with. Organic chemistry. She immediately goes to break up with Bowden, and unlike Leo, he is very normal about it. He's like, oh, well, I'm disappointed, but, you know, I'm happy for you. Me and Ram are great friends, and I think you guys would be a perfect match for each other. I wish you all happiness. Bye. Like, that's it. Meanwhile, Leo is still complaining to Nick about the fact that Hannah has chosen Nick. We see him over the course of the rest of the episode kind of slowly work himself into, like, believing that Brittany is the one for him, even though he was 1000% for Hannah the whole time, literally in the room begging her to stay with him. They have their final little conversation, their one last date that Hannah promised him, in which, his name is not Nick, it's Leo. Leo attempts to gaslight both Hannah and himself into believing that Brittany is and always was his number one, and that he's so happy to be with Brittany, and he's so happy that he found the one through this experiment, and blah, 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 whatever. And Hannah rightfully asks him, well, if Brittany's the one, why were you yesterday screaming, crying, and throwing up when I tried to break up with you? He doesn't answer her, like, or maybe he does, but it got cut. But, like, it's clear that he is taking a consolation prize, or so he thinks. And Hannah, honestly, to her credit, like, is, like, not really letting him have it. She's like, you're lying. Or she doesn't say to him that he's lying, but she's just like, okay, guy, like, sure, whatever. We are zooming through these engagements because, like, in the first season, like, by episode 4, we were in Mexico. This season, episode 4, we're still in these damn pods. Spoiler alert, episode 5, we're still in the damn pods. Tim and Alex get engaged. Not a big shock to anyone. They were never really involved with anyone else. Monica and Steven end up meeting, and it's, you know, goes as well as it possibly can. She seems like, well, I'm 36, I would like to get married, and I can find something about him to be attracted to. And he seems really excited that he is engaged to an incredibly hot woman. The kisses, though, like, the kisses absolutely turned my stomach. I hate to see them kiss. Pretty sure Marissa and Ramses get engaged too. If they don't in this episode, they do eventually. Like, they're gonna get engaged. And then Nick and Hannah also get engaged. I'm fairly certain that Tim and Alex also meet during this episode. Look, it's all running together, okay? What I remember from their meeting is that they both seem pleasantly attracted to each other, which is nice. That's always a happy ending on Love is Blind, because sometimes you end up in situations like ones that we'll talk about next episode. But anyways, we round off the episode with Brittany and Leo. Brittany is holding her ground. She's standing firm. She's written a letter to Leo to tell him basically how disappointed in him she is and how sad she is, because after his conversation with Hannah, either the first day or the second day that they talked, Hannah went into the women's quarters and basically told Brittany, like, this guy is going to come to you and try and sweet talk you, but I need you to know that he was in there, like, crying, begging me to not leave him. And I don't want you, if he had said the things to me that he said to me, to you, I would have wanted to know. So, but Leo, the salesman, you know, he's not going to lose the opportunity to gaslight, gatekeep, and girl boss. So he says a bunch of bullshit back that basically ends in him proposing to Brittany, which she accepts. And we'll see how that turns out in the next episode, which you can find on my page. So we have 3 couples already engaged, right? We have Tim and Ashley. Oh God, I always mix them up. Tyler and Ashley, Monica and Steven, and Garrett and Taylor. All the other couples that are engaged have not met yet. So in this episode, we are speeding through the meet cutes for each of the newly engaged couples. First on the chopping block are Nick and Hannah, and I am not going to lie to you, this meeting is absolutely tragic. It's absolutely tragic. Hannah is one of 2 women this season to immediately look at the camera and then look back at her fiance when the doors slide open and she finally gets to see him. She is clearly very disappointed in what she sees. Because even though Nick used to play football, and even though he described himself as like Henry Cavill but nerdy, he's not in any way like big, bulky, and buff. He's quite skinny and scrawny. And if you know anything about football, as Hannah should, because she dated the quarterback in high school, you would know that kickers are quite skinny and scrawny. The only reason I know that is because I've seen every episode of Friday Night Lights at least 3 times. I mean, come on, Landry Clark, anyone? So she's here trying her damnedest to keep a straight face and honestly like not laugh in his face as they are sitting in front of each other, and she's like leaning away from him. It's just really awkward to watch. I will say it did feel like there was potential in the future, which may or may not last. Brittany and Leo. Brittany is finally getting to meet the man who she begged for I love yous from. And Leo is finally getting to meet the woman who he almost passed over for another who he clearly liked a lot more. And we are 2 for 2 on girls looking straight to camera and then looking back at their alleged fiancés when those doors slide open. Because Brittany literally has that like, what the fuck look that Julia Louis-Dreyfus had in Veep as soon as she sees Leo. She's like, this is a guy that I spent all that time like crying and worrying over, which, I mean, I think in a way, love is not blind. We know love is not blind. Like, it's been 7 seasons, we know that, but like, she's genuinely like, oh my God. And I'm not gonna lie, it feels a little gratifying to watch because Leo has been so thoroughly insufferable this entire season. Not to say that he deserves any like hate beyond his fiance clearly thinking that he is uggo, but like, wow, was he so annoying every time he was on camera, and wow, was it so, gave me such delicious schadenfreude to watch this man be so clearly disdained by a woman that he was obviously incredibly attracted to. This is another scene that went on entirely too long. Like, he is grasping at this woman, and she is backing away, like almost off the couch to get away from him. And that's the thing, is like these guys, I'm sure, are aware that these women are not super attracted to them. Like Nick D seemed really nervous when he met Hannah. Leo again was grasping onto Brittany, like he was like, oh, I can't let this one go, she's gonna run away and leave forever. Like they know on some level, you know. The funniest part of all is that when Brittany walks out of the room with her engagement ring on, not having told Leo that she loves him, because remember, saying the L word was such a big thing for him, even though he just said to Hannah that he loved her and also that he loved both of his connections. Brittany literally looks to camera and says, what have I done? That's really how it be sometimes. Like, it really be like that sometimes. You look around at this person who you beg to love you and you're like, what? Oh, I forgot to say, immediately after Leo and Brittany met, there's like a text box that is like, production decided not to follow Leo and Brittany or invite them to Cabo. They took their own trip to Miami, and on that trip they ended up breaking up a few weeks later. Shocker. Marissa and Ramses meet, and it's great. You know, they both are black with curly hair. Like, they are clearly one another's type, clearly attracted to each other. Great. Now we are in Cabo San Lucas on the quote-unquote honeymoons. Ashley and Tyler are bonding. Marissa and Ramses are having a lot of physical connections, one can say. Hannah are kind of getting used to each other. Hannah says, like, it took me a while to, like, match the voice I heard and the person that I imagined him to be to the person that he is, but I feel like I'm doing it slowly. Taylor and Garrett are being really cute together. And nothing really happens this episode except at the end. At the end is when Nick sees some ceramic ducks or whatever, like near the water where him and Hannah are sitting. He's like, I want to go ride. Hannah says to him, that gives me the ick. Like, the women this season are really often talking about things that give them the ick. She's like, I don't know, just something about men riding things gives me the ick. If I have to watch a man ride a horse, like, I get grossed out. I don't know what it is. And Nick is trying to be playful. He's trying to be a jester. He's like, I'm going to do it anyway. So he goes over to this ceramic duck and he decides that he is going to mount it. And Hannah is just sitting in her chair staring at him like, I can't believe I'm engaged to this man. She's like, oh my God, this is so embarrassing. Like, I think she's kind of overdoing it. Like, she's doing a little bit too much, but like, she's really upset at the fact that he's over on these ducks, like riding them. And then an older woman comes over and she's like, oh, what are you doing? This looks fun. I want to join you. And Hannah is like, oh my God, no, Nick. Like, Nick, she's trying to call him over. The older woman looks at her and she's like, is that your girlfriend? Don't be so jealous. And Nick and her start laughing together. And Hannah, again, is mortified. Nick sets a finish line and him and the older woman end up riding their ducks to the finish line and like racing basically. And the older woman wins. And I don't want to say older like she's old. She's just older than him, you know. I think like they try to make it seem in the show like she's like 90 or 70 years old. Like she's just maybe early 60s, late 50s. And Hannah is so upset at this, and that's basically where the episode leaves off. I've discovered that I like this foundation. This is the Huda Beauty Easy Blur. I like it a lot more with a brush than a sponge. Everyone seems to be really enjoying their vacations together. So of course we have to throw a wrench in it by holding the annual Love is Blind couples cocktail party at the honeymoons. The girls are clicked up immediately, and it's both cute and, like, kind of cringy and annoying. Like, they decide to hold a kind of, like, hot seat thing where they make each of the men come over and answer questions to kind of, like, vet them and vet the connections and see how they are. And in person, they're making it seem like they're really supportive of everybody's engagements. But, like, once they're alone with their fiances, the real truth comes out. How they really feel about everything gets revealed. But the most like important kind of dramatic beat that happens right now is that Nick is telling the guys about something he found in his room. So after the duck fiasco, which he didn't really think was a fiasco, but apparently Hannah thought was a fiasco, she decided that it was a good idea to write down and leave laying around a list of like all the things about him that like give her second thoughts about their connection. And as he frames it, he had seen that she wrote a list of like 10 things about him that she was unsure about. So it was like self-confident versus cocky, too into himself, question mark. Is he serious about this, question mark? And he just like found it. You cannot convince me, like, it doesn't, I don't care how much money you want me to place on this, you cannot convince me that she did not leave that lying around for him to find so that they could have an organic conversation about it. She was having doubts. She didn't want to bring up any of this stuff to him because she'd done it before in the pods and she knew it might be perceived as like annoying or whatever. And so she left it laying around so he could find it. And he did, and it really hurt his feelings because it's basically a burn book about your fiance. I don't know about you, but I find that to be very weird and calculated. And I did not like that at all. Hot seat conversations, each of the men goes over. Steven seems to say all the right things. Ramses seems to say all the right things. I think Tim and Tyler were like a little bit nervous, but they got it in the end. And Garrett, of course, comes out smelling like a rose. Nick ends up confronting Hannah about the list and basically tells her that like it hurt his feelings, which is fair because it hurt my feelings too. Damn. Oh yeah, and he brings up that like one of the bullet points on the list was Delulu. Marissa and Ramses are talking about Nick and Hannah, and Marissa basically reveals that she does not really like Nick for Hannah. It seems like Marissa would be very protective of her. But she's like, yeah, I don't really like Nick for her. She's not really going into detail because Ramses does like Nick. Like, they're friends. They knew each other on the men's side of things. And he's kind of like, I don't really think that Nick is the problem, but whatever. And honestly, I don't know if I am a victim of the edit. I tend to be. I tend to get suckered in by edits. Not on Real Housewives of Salt Lake City, though. Heather Gay, I have some questions for you. But like Ram is like, I don't know. I mean, it seems like he doesn't really like Hannah for Nick. Like they're both kind of being protective of their respective friends in the situation. And I think the reason that it comes up for Marissa and Ram is because they're talking about like the chances of everyone getting married. They say, you know, me and you 100% definitely getting married. Tyler and Ashley 100% definitely getting married. Garrett and Taylor definitely getting married. And then they say, Marissa says she sees it for Monica and Steven. And Ram is like, basically like, you sure? You sure, buddy? But she's adamant, you know, wishful thinking. And then she says, I think 80% Tim and Alex, 75% Nick and Hannah. Then we flash to Nick and Hannah, and they're still talking about the situation with the fucking ducks on the beach. And Nick is trying to tell her how hurtful it was to find that list. And she's like, okay, but can you see it from my perspective? You write a burn book about me and you want me to see it from your perspective? I'm trying to tell you how something you did hurt me and you want me to see it from your perspective? Oh, mama, she's an Aquarius. And I have to say, too, like, the way she told the story at the cocktail party definitely embellished it to everyone. She's like, Nick and this much older woman were, like, playing on these ducks, and then she says to me, don't be such a jealous bitch. The word bitch was never involved. They're talking back and forth, and she's trying to get him to see her side, and he's trying to get her to, like, apologize. And finally he's like, you called me Delulu, but I'm not the only one in this connection who's Delulu. And like, he kind of ate her up. Like, yeah, because why are you still there? You clearly don't like this man. Like, it's okay to say goodbye to yesterday. Monica and Steven are talking about how the evening went, and Steven is talking about how the evening went. Like, he is going and going and going, and Monica is like, oh my gosh, like, I cannot get a word in edgewise. Like, I would like to have a conversation with you, not you have a conversation at me, which like quiets him up, and he starts like actually asking her questions, which it's clear that she's annoyed that he is just like such a yapper. I wonder how that'll figure into their later relationship. We end the episode with Tim and Alex. There wasn't a lot of footage of them after the cocktail parties. We don't really know what ended up happening to them. Tim comes into the hotel room, and it's clear that he hadn't slept there that night, but we're also not entirely sure why. And they start to have this incredibly weird, incredibly vague conversation about a moment the past night where Alex started yelling at Tim and was calling him out of his name, and he was trying to talk to her, and she had covered his mouth at one point, like with her hand, and he ended up deciding that he was going to leave and not sleep in the hotel room with her. She's apologizing for the whole situation. How do I always end up overdoing the blush? She's like trying to get him to stay with her in the hotel room and like stay on the experiment and not break up with her, basically. She's like trying to get him to sit closer to her on the couch. And the whole vibe of it is very weird and very off. He ends up deciding to stay in the experiment. And that's where we leave off the episode. So we pick up where we left off with Tim and Alex. They're still having their little conversation. He's agreed that he is going to stay in the experiment and stay engaged to her, not like break up with her or whatever. And she has apologized for whatever it was that she did. The whole thing is really weird to me. Don't know what happened there. I'm kind of scared, but you know, I'm wishing them the best. We then go to Nick and Hannah, who seem to have patched things up enough to feel comfortable going bungee jumping together. Bungee jumping is one of those things that you will absolutely never catch me doing. Like, it won't be me. They don't even really seem like they had that much fun. Like, they both come up from the bungee jumping experience and they're like, well, that was a thing that I did. I'm not gonna lie, I had to rewatch this conversation between Monica and Steven because I wasn't paying attention. Whenever they come on screen, I just like and I'm done. It's red flag city, like everywhere with them. So they're talking about how one of Monica's main love languages is receiving gifts. She loves to give gifts. She loves to receive gifts. She's a big gift person. And Steven couldn't give two shits about it. She's talking about something as simple as just like wanting flowers from her partner. And like, let me tell you guys, like I've had this exact same conversation with, if you say I want flowers and they say why, run. That's not the relationship for you. He's talking about how like he grew up different. He hasn't had a Christmas present in years because his family was poor. What that got to do with the fact that I want flowers? He's like, I know you're not always asking me for something super high end like a Kate Spade bag. She's like, you mean a YSL bag? He's like, what's YSL? Oh please. Oh please. This sounds like years of pain, suffering, and begging to me. But she decides to continue going back and forth with a grown man who should absolutely at least have Google to know what YSL is. And they end up getting to the conversation of him not wanting to disappoint her. Red flag, wee woo. This is a man who has said that he cheated in the past because he felt like he didn't deserve his ex. Him saying that he doesn't want to disappoint you, he's saying that he might cheat. He's got one foot out the door, baby. You gotta recognize patterns. But once again, she keeps talking to him. He's saying, I don't want to disappoint you, and this is just a lot to commit to. I don't want to end up being in a situation where I feel like I'm doing something that I don't want to do. Wee woo. Why is the fact that you don't want to give gifts more important than the fact that you are with someone who needs to receive gifts in order to feel loved? Why is your avoidance of this demand prioritized over my need for it to be met? He's like, marriage is a really big commitment and I don't want to be forced into doing something that I don't want to do. Like, it's just a lot right now. And she's like, what do you mean it's a lot right now? What do you mean it's a big commitment? Like, didn't we both come here with the understanding that this was ending in marriage, or am I confused? You're just realizing this now that we're on this free vacation in Cabo San Lucas, that like, because I'm asking you to get me flowers, it's too big of a deal to get married. I hate like going back and forth with idiots. But she's still talking to him, and he ends up bringing that he might be having doubts. He might be having cold feet, second thoughts, whatever. And she's like, what do you mean? All this says to me is that this is another case of a woman coming into this show with a real intentionality. Find my husband, marry him, start my life. And a man coming into this show to basically see how far he can go. Steven is allegedly a Cancer, and I feel like Cancers are the epitome of that, like, Joker quote. He's like, I'm just a dog chasing cars. I wouldn't know what to do with one if I caught it. They just do things to see how much they can get away with. And he has somehow ended up on this all expense paid luxury vacation with an incredibly beautiful, incredibly rich woman. And all she's asking of him is for him to get her flowers. And he's like, ugh, this might be a bridge too far. This absolutely bodes well for the longevity of this partnership. The intimacy between Monica and Steven basically screeches to a halt at this point. Like, I don't think she feels comfortable being, like, naked and vulnerable with him anymore, which, like, more power to you, girl. And he's clearly chomping at the bit. All right, let's get into the rest of the episode where they finally go home. They're put up in luxury apartments in Alexandria, not DC. And this is a part of the experiment where they find out if real life will tear them apart or make them stronger. Hannah seems incredibly annoyed by Nick D at this point. I feel like I look like a rockhead. Tyler and Ashley are praying in bed together, which is kind of cute. Garrett and Taylor are looking at one another's social media for the first time, and Taylor gets to see all of Garrett's really cool fish pics. And then they end up driving down to Fredericksburg to meet Garrett's family. Taylor's family isn't really interested in being on camera. They don't really want to be a part of the whole experiment things, and they also live in San Diego. So Taylor's mom, Fong, is gonna fly over, and her dad is staying at home, and I guess her mom is just gonna report back. Which brings up for me this whole thing of, like, this being Love is Blind DC, but, like, almost everyone in this cast is a transplant. I think Ashley A might be the only DC native, or, like, DMV native. Oh, and Nick D, because he's from Nova. It's just kind of like, how representative is this of quote-unquote our culture if everyone on the show is from not here? But anyway, Garrett's family is healthily skeptical of Taylor. Like, they're still nice to her. They still enjoy getting to know her. They still give her a chance, but they're like, this is crazy. I don't know what's going on. We don't know you, and you're just going to be, like, married into our family. And for her part, she's very, like, upfront and honest. She's like, yeah, this is crazy. It's wild, but I hope it works out for the best because you guys seem like really cool people. Which is honestly, I think, the best way that it could have gone. Some stupid shit happens with Monica and Steven where she's basically talking about how she's going to be a sugar mama. And then back with Marissa and Ram, we kind of see them, like, butt heads in a loving way. This is what I find in Cancer x Aries relationships. They can work. I've seen them work, but they're also very, like, playfully combative until they're not. So the first instance, they're fighting about the fact that Marissa wants a wedding where all the guests wear black and only her and Ram wear white, and he, like a true Latin American, it's like, why are you so obsessed with black? And then the second instance, when she gets home from work, he's made them dinner and they're having dinner and talking about her military service. He's talking about how he really does not support the US military and he kind of loves her in spite of her military service, where I'm thinking she kind of wishes that he loved her for her military service. And she's saying that he's like the first guy she's ever dated who hasn't been like, oh yeah, this is so cool. Him being from Venezuela, he knows firsthand how the United States government destabilizes other countries and creates antagonistic situations that then force us to intervene. And Marissa isn't disagreeing with him. She's just saying, like, look, I agree with you. Like, I think the US military is a net negative in the world, but I also cannot lie and say that I would not be where I am today in my life without it. And to his credit, he's principled enough to sit in her face and tell her, like, yeah, I can't support that. Like, I love you. I do, but I don't support what you have done. And to her credit, she's honest enough to express the fact that she's feeling judged in the conversation. And so they kind of leave it there for the night, but there is an ominous overtone of like, is this going to be the thing that breaks them apart? And that is Love is Blind Season 7, Episode 7. So Ashley and Tyler are talking about their wedding. There's not really a lot going on with them, so we don't really see them that much. But we have to get back to the hot mess express that is Monica and Steven. They're actually doing this really cute and like fun looking activity where they press flowers into little like gold rimmed holders. You probably have seen them at like Urban Outfitters or somewhere like that. Do their own original blends. Flower Lady, of course, sides with white supremacy and decides, or I should say sides with quadroon supremacy and decides. She decides that she likes Steven's flower arrangement more than Monica's. Back with Marissa and Ram, they go out to meet her bestest girlfriends, and the military service debate continues. I hate to side with a man, I really do, but he is sitting there like giving them very principled, very clear explanations of why he disagrees with the United States military, what he thinks about it. He brings up Palestine and the stuff that's being done there, and he's like, no matter what I'm doing, no matter where I am, I side with the oppressed because of where I come from. Very relatable to me. So they ask him, like, would you divorce her if she decided to re-enlist? And he's like, yeah, I would. Marissa even said in the last episode, like, I don't know if I would be able to sit in front of a person whose house I bombed and say, like, oh, I support the troops. I still think that I was doing a good thing. Like, it was all for the greater good. Like, she said she wouldn't be able to do that. And I honestly don't think that most people would, and people who say that they would are kind of, like, bullshitting. Like, you wouldn't be comfortable doing that. I think her friends are a little appalled, and also like, I don't know, I don't really see where this is going because of that statement. And like, of course, one of her friends had been in the military, or like multiple of them, I'm not really sure, but like, they know how important it is to her. They know how like integral of a role it's played in her life. So they're kind of like ing Ramses after he says that. I forgot to say that Nick D took Hannah to his family home. He lives with his parents still in the basement, and like, honestly, I don't blame him. As a bitch who lived with her parents until literally a month ago, like, yeah, it's hard out here. The way I spent 3 years looking for like an actual employment, not a contracting job, and finally gave up and said I'm going to fucking grad school, like, the US economy sucks. Like, the world economy sucks. I don't blame him, but clearly Hannah is judging him. Yes, because she's like, she's been out on her own since she was 18, taking care of everything, so it's just a little weird to see a man who's still relying on his mom to do his laundry. Like, go date someone from West Virginia then. Like, I don't know what you want me to tell you. Hannah does not like this man. I wish she would leave him alone. Tim goes with Alex to meet her family, and it goes really well. Her dad is basically like, you know, whatever makes her happy makes me happy. And I am not gonna lie to you, I actually couldn't watch most of this scene because her dad was so sweet, and older black men make me cry because my dad is dead. Oh, I think Alex is also an actual DC native, because like, tell me that this is not a DC looking ass family. Like, DC, Maryland looking ass family. Taylor and Garrett are talking about potentially moving to San Diego. And Garrett's kind of sad about it because he wants to be like near his family. He wants his kids to grow up seeing his parents on a regular basis, which I absolutely get and I absolutely agree with. But she's like, we're moving to San Diego though, right? And they come to the conclusion of like, yeah, probably within some time, like, we'll be in San Diego. But for right now, we're in DC. And honestly, I don't blame her. I mean, I think everybody wants to raise their kids close to or in the same place that they were raised. Makes sense to me. This is when Steven and Monica have the conversation where she's telling him that she'll be his sugar mama, I think, or they're talking about sex. Look, all their conversations run together. Steven is really weird. She was trying to express how she no longer felt safe to be physically intimate with him after he admitted that he was having second thoughts about getting married. And he's like, well, look, I'm a man, and men have to every 6 to 8 hours, and if we don't, we're really simple. The wind blows in a certain direction, and I'm like, I want to just fuck anything that moves, and you're a woman, and women are hard. And to her credit, Monica is like, we're not that hard. And he's like, most women don't know their own combination. And she's like, I know my combination. Like, she's subtly digging at the kind of misogynistic arguments he's making about why he, like, needs to fuck her, even though he's not entirely sure that he wants to marry her. And that's, like, an important thing for her to have before she can be physically intimate with her fiance. And yeah, it's looking great for these guys. Taylor and Nick start talking financials, and he does not know a damn thing about them. She's asking about his investments, his stocks, his 401ks, and she's like, well, I have investments in stocks, and like, that's so good. And he's like, well, I don't have investments in stocks because you can lose money in stocks. And she's like, well, yeah, that's if you're high risk, high reward. I'm low risk, low reward, but I have a lot of investment. He's clearly very out of his depth with this woman. Like, he don't know what the fuck is going on. And she's clearly very annoyed by how little he knows about anything. Tim ends up meeting Ashley's Nigerian father, who, I'm not joking, looks like her brother. Like, they look like siblings. I know people can say that a lot and it not be true, but like, genuinely, this man looks so young. And also the way he talks, I knew that man was foreign in some way. I was like, he's either Dominican or Nigerian. Turns out he was Nigerian. But he's basically like the anti-Nigerian man. He's like, look, whatever makes my daughter happy, great. You seem like a nice guy. How are you going to provide for her? Tim gives him an answer and he's like, great. And honestly, I love that for Ashley. And then we get into the most dramatic part of the episode, the cheating scandal. I bet you can't guess who it was. If you guess Steven, you can collect your prize in the comments. Your prize is my love and support. Yeah, so Steven managed to cheat in the, month that he's known Monica. So surprising that a man who told her he was a cheater and said that he cheats when he doesn't feel like he deserves women would meet this gorgeous woman who's willing to pay his way through life if he loses his job and then cheat. Truly, who could have anticipated this outcome? Not me. So Monica had seen or gone through Steven's phone and seen, I don't exactly know the logistics of it, but she saw that he was messaging a girl. She's in the apartment crying about it. Taylor comes in and Taylor is helping to support her through her time of need. And while she's crying to Taylor about being cheated on by her fiance of 3 weeks, he's rummaging through the cabinets like a little rat looking for snacks. So Taylor's talking to Monica about the situation, and we are all sitting there going, I told you so. Sadly. Steven comes in to talk to Monica. She says basically, how dare you? The things he was talking about with the girl were apparently disgusting, involving kinks and horrible things, and he was talking to her that very same day. He had said that he was supposed to go do a sleep study. He did not sleep in the apartment with Monica that night, and the next day was the day that she found the messages between Steven and the girl. Steven at first attempts to weakly defend himself, saying, oh, I wasn't going to do anything, or we were talking however much long ago. We were talking 5 days ago. Yeah, we've been engaged for 3 weeks. So within, 16 days, you decided, oh, let me cheat? That's crazy. And Monica called him out on it. She's like, you were talking to her today. It wasn't a long time ago. Now knowing that there's no way that he can manipulate himself out of this situation, like a true Cancer, he decides to go the opposite route, which is self-flagellation. He agrees with her. Yeah, I'm a piece of shit. I suck. I don't deserve anything good in life. I can't believe I did this to you. I'm such a bad person. I fucking hate myself. I'm a waste of space. I can't believe I wasted your time. I shouldn't have gone on this show. Basically anything that she's saying, he's parroting back to her. which makes it hard for a person to get actual satisfaction in a conversation like this because the other person isn't engaging. They're just trying to appease so that they can escape as quickly as possible. But before he leaves, Monica finally stands up and says, I demand that you Venmo me right now for all the weight that I've pulled in this relationship. And she makes him take his phone out and Venmo him for all the weight that she's pulled in this relationship. Honestly, bad bitch move, 10 out of 10. Love her for that. Taylor and Garrett come back into the room as Monica is on the couch sobbing. And it's honestly like really sad. At the end of the day, like she could have read a lot of the red flags that were coming up. She could have pivoted. She could have not like just gone so hard on investing in him. She could have done a lot of things differently. But none of that means that she deserved to get cheated on. Now, did he basically hold up a giant flashing sign that said, I will cheat on you sooner rather than later? Yes. But the fact that he decided to then go and do that in the exact same manner that he admitted to cheating in the past, that's on him. And I wish her nothing but happiness. Like it was actually really sad to watch her on the couch with Taylor and Garrett, like really breaking down, really crying, because it's like kind of the juxtaposition of a relationship in this experiment that has worked and a relationship that has fallen apart so completely, and it just made me sad. We open this episode with Ashley and Tyler talking about how many kids they want to have. Interesting. He wants 7. She wants 2. Or rather, he wants 7. She wants to keep trying until she has a girl. If she has a girl first, another one is just extra. But if she has 2 boys, she's going to try for a 3rd girl. It's a woman who knows what she wants. Respect that. Then we go to Nick and Hannah as they prepare for Hannah's brother Cade to come visit. Cade is gay. I don't know if he's been exiled from the rest of the family because he's not in the family meeting that happens later on, or if he's just like older, he doesn't live with them anymore, but yeah, he's gay. And Hannah is trying to get Nick to boil some water and cook some pasta so that she can have help preparing dinner for the 3 of them. Nick doesn't know how to boil water and cook pasta. It has to be weaponized incompetence. I can't live in a world where that's not the case, because a grown man asking me how much water to put into a pot to boil, that would send me off the deep end. I'm starting to sour on both Nick and Hannah at this point. Cade seems cool though, I liked him. The weird part was that Nick was kind of like commiserating with him over the issues that he had with his sister, and I would be like, dude, you know I'm gonna tell her everything that you're saying as soon as you leave, right? Speaking of unsafe spaces, this is the episode where Marissa introduces Ram to her whole family, including her mother. I'm just gonna say, I can't imagine calling your daughter a bitch to her new fiance while there are cameras running. Alex goes to Tim's apartment and she sees his pristine, I think he called it elevated man cave design, which it's a man's apartment, but it's also a Virgo man's apartment. It's like, I know a straight man lives here, but a straight man who really cares that his suits are tailored properly and the sleeves don't overhang. It was kind of a beautiful sight to behold. It looks a bit like what I would imagine my Virgo brother's apartment to look like if he ever moved out. Taylor and Garrett are talking about the situation with Monica and Steven, and Taylor is really thanking Garrett for kind of being there and being supportive and knowing what the right things to say were. She also mentions that her family is in general very skeptical about the whole situation. Like, she's recognizing and understanding that Garrett and his family will be wanting to have conversations about her that have nothing to do with her, that have no bearing on who she really is as a person, but that just involve skepticism because it is a very expedited process that is supposedly going to end in marriage. The conversation is kind of about how it's not as easy for Taylor to have these conversations because her family lives halfway across the country, also because her dad doesn't want to be on camera, and also because of how quickly everything's happening. And she just expresses to him, like, it's going to be really important to get my parents' blessing before I say I do. He asks her what would happen if they say no, they can't give their blessing, and she's like, well, I wouldn't be able to marry you. He's like, that sucks, because even if my parents said that they didn't want to give their blessing to us, I would still marry you. Kind of ends in a stalemate. Like, this isn't a conversation that's easy to resolve. Nick meets Hannah's family. I skipped this scene because I thought it would be boring, and I'm pretty sure I was right. Alex finally shows Tim her apartment. And, it's quite something. Look, I'm not one to judge. If you saw what's going on behind me, like, I mean, it's not quite as bad as what's going on at Alex's house, but, like, I'm not one to judge. But wow, there's shit everywhere. Her couch is comfortable, though, so that's an upside. It's just a really stark contrast between Tim's place, which is so perfectly curated. I don't know if he had professional cleaners go through it before bringing in the cameras, or if he just keeps it that neat himself. And then Alex's place, which is like a hot mess. Especially because you can tell she's kind of ashamed, and she's like, I know. But hopefully their house won't get like that when they get married. Hannah meets Nick's family officially. She's been to their house, but she hasn't quite met them. Look, they're every Northern Virginia family that lets their kids stay home as long as they need to that I've ever met. And wouldn't you know, I've met several. They seem like incredibly kind people. Nick seems like he was raised in a really nice bubble. If anything, I think he's going to be a great dad. He is just a little bit immature for his age. And I say that knowing a lot of people who still live at home with their parents and knowing that they don't quite give the same level of immaturity that he gives. Garrett meets Taylor's friends, cute, sweet, whatever. Let's get to the drama, okay? And of course it's the blacks that bring the drama. Ramses. You had me fooled, all right? You had me thinking, I thought he was conscious, okay? I thought he was a man of the world. I thought he was a girl's guy. He's nothing of the sort. He's nothing like that. I recently saw his birth chart and saw that he has a Leo Venus in addition to a Leo moon and a Leo rising. I know this man is a menace. He's beautiful, but he is a menace. Him and Marissa are having a conversation about sex and safe sex. And it does not have the pitch at all of the conversations that Tiffany and her fiance, whose name I can't remember, had like a season or two ago. Those conversations were them together really trying to work stuff out. These conversations are him, in my opinion, trying to manipulate her into doing what he wants. She doesn't want to go back on birth control because it really doesn't agree with her. He doesn't want to have condom sex because he doesn't like it. He says, I know birth control is like a big thing for you and it's like messing with your body. What he means is, I don't give a fuck because I don't like having sex with a condom and I don't want a baby. She says to him, I'm fine getting pregnant. I'm fine having a baby right now. But if you want to continue to have condomless sex, you need to also be fine with that. He is not fine with that. And he keeps reiterating, condom sex just doesn't feel good and sex has to be enjoyable for the both of us. You know what's also enjoyable for the both of you? Being able to have a married life with one another when there's not 4 children screaming in the background, okay? Mama is Mormon. She knows the consequences of just having sex with people condomless. And from the looks of her family table, that's a fertile family. I have never gotten such an aggressive ick watching a man on television in my life. Now, I knew he was a Cancer, so I knew there had to be something wrong with him. But that Leo stellium, plus his obsession with condomless sex, but desire to not have a baby, even though this woman has told you that she's not going on birth control, you're a sick individual. You're a sick man with sick thoughts, okay? Ooh, it got me heated. Speaking of condomless sex, this is when we officially find out that Tyler does in fact have children. And we find out at the same time that Ashley finds out, apparently. Because they are sitting on the couch having a conversation about how she didn't know until now. And she feels very blindsided and taken advantage of because she was not able to make an informed decision with all the information possible. If she had known he had kids, it might have changed the way that she answered when he proposed. And this comes down to the question of the entire show and the entire episode, which is love enough? She loves this man now, but is it enough? Because he absolutely lied by omission. I guess we'll find out. I just filmed my summaries for the last few episodes of Love is Blind, and these men had me fooled, okay? They had me bamboozled. Forget these are men from the DMV. Damn. I was rooting for these relationships, thinking things were gonna work out, things were gonna be good. No. And Ashley said it best herself when she was in Mexico. She was like, trusting a man, a black man, living in DC, in this economy. Ram is a GD lie. Like, I knew the other shoe had to drop at a certain point. You cannot be a Cancer man who is that smooth with a Leo rising without something being wrong with you. For me personally, it's a Leo Venus. The fact that he has a Leo Venus and his fiance has a Pisces Venus. Trauma. When I say trauma, like I want Marissa to run far away. But it's not even that, okay? It's the condomless sex conversation. I haven't seriously dated a man ever in my life, I guess. So, like, maybe I'm speaking out of turn. I don't know. But, like, how serious is it? How serious is it? Is it really gonna make you, like, are you gonna less? Like, are you gonna finish less because you're covered? Is it, like, the same as not having sex at all because you're covered? Like, is that the same in your mind? And let me lay this out for you. The woman is not going to go on birth control because her birth control is invasive. It messes with her hormones. It alters her body chemistry in a way that is not positive experience for her. And even if it was a positive experience, needing to do something that alters your body chemistry just because you're a man doesn't want to put on a rubber. Ugh. But like, not only that, she's saying to you, I'm good if we have a baby. I'm fine if we get pregnant. You're the one who has a problem with it. Ergo, she doesn't want to do the invasive birth control. You don't want to have a baby. So wouldn't you think that a condom would be the answer? Not for Ramses. Not for Ramses. These men. Adamant. And the fact, if it was one conversation, right? If it was one conversation that they had on camera where he's like, I just don't like condom sex. Like, it's not for me. I don't like it. I don't want to do it. Whatever. That's one thing. The fact that he's in these previews for this next batch of episodes still talking about this. Grow up. Grow up. Grow up. And go get a Magnum. Like, if it said it's too big, it squeezes it. Like, go get a Magnum. They have a whole brand that's just for that. If it's that you're just like a big whiny baby and you just want things to be exactly the way that you want them to be because that's how you want them to be, then just say that. Just say that. But don't lie to this woman's face and say, oh no, I get it. I totally get it. I know it like messes with your hormones, whatever. But condom sex is horrible for me. So, because you don't get it. You don't get it. You're saying you won't do something with her. You're probably going to go find it somewhere else because she's not letting you do it and you don't want to have a baby. I see exactly what type of man you are. And Tyler, to not tell your fiance that you have children running around that you know about, whose lives you have been involved in, is absolutely batshit crazy. But can't we expect anything else from a Libra man? No. I'm not joking when I say Libra men are some of the most evil people who've ever walked this earth. Are they in the history books for it? Are there tomes written about their evil? No. It's because they hide it well. Because of how charming they are. But they are evil. I cannot believe that I was sitting here thinking, oh my god, how cute. I love this man. Like, yeah, he has problems, but he's so good at communicating, so good. And to lie to a woman with a Nigerian father, like, you won't simply fall off the face of the earth. I don't have anything to say about Steven because I saw that coming from a mile away. A white man with a history of cheating finds out that he's part Nigerian, part West African. That's only going to make him stronger. This is I Watched It So You Don't Have to, Love is Blind, Season 7, Episode 10. This is potentially the most infuriating episode of the show to date. We open with Nick and Hannah in my personal stomping grounds, downtown Silver Spring. They are at the now defunct Sip and Develop. I wonder why it's gone forever. It's not like the photos they took look incredibly chintzy and not like a cute JCPenney way. I don't know, they seem to be getting along for once, which is nice. Then smash cut to Marissa and Ramses, and they are once again having a fight about something that he shouldn't be upset about. So Marissa is chronically ill, and Ramses is talking to her about the lack of intimacy between them recently. Mind you, at this point, these people have probably been living together for like max 2 weeks. So like, how recent could recently possibly be? But he's basically saying to her he's concerned that it's going to become a pattern and a thing in their relationship where he's trying to reach out and she just doesn't feel like being touched. And she's saying, well, you know, I have that chronic illness that I told you about in the pods that you said was okay and that you said you wanted to help me through. And that this is kind of like part of that. She also had been like PMSing. It was a whole thing. Ramses is gaslight gatekeep girl boss. Like, he is all three at the same time. Because he's basically saying, yeah, I know. I hear what you're saying. I don't want to get married if I'm having any like concerns. She says, oh, so you think you're having doubts? He says, I don't know if I'd call it doubts. I'd call it doubts. And it's a really uncomfortable conversation to watch because he's not trying to coerce her into anything, but he's basically saying, if you don't me a certain amount of times a day or a week, I might be gone. And she's like, okay, but sometimes I won't be able to do that because, again, I have that illness that I told you about. And then also, I'm just a human person who has ebbs and flows in my desires. And he's saying, yeah, I hear you, ebbs and flows. But if it ebbs and flows too much, I'm leaving. I hate him bad. And Marissa brings up a statistic that a lot of husbands end up leaving their wives after they fall ill. Which I think is like a really important thing to bring up because it's like, when I no longer can access you truly in the way that I would like to, I'm out the door. And that is the way a lot of men work. And that is the way that Ramses, Mr. Girls Guy, seems to be working. Then we are back to Tyler and Ashley. She's asking him more questions about his children, what the whole situation is with them, and he's quote-unquote answering them. He basically explains it as, look, I wanted to help out this family, this friend that I had who wanted to have children with her wife, and I felt like God was calling me to help someone. Was God also calling you to move in with one of the lesbians and fuck her and get her pregnant a second time? Was that God? The main problem I have is that she asks him, do the kids know what you look like? And he looks her dead in her face and says, I don't think so. When you have pictures of them in matching pajamas on Christmas on the internet. If men have one thing, it is the audacity. I accidentally skipped over Tim and Alex meeting Tim's parents. His first name is apparently Drake, which I found a bit endearing. His mom calls him Drake, and she's talking about how she knows that it can be hard for him to open up, and she's giving a lot of really good marriage advice. I'd recommend you watch the scene if you're interested in learning about marriage from people who actually know how to do it well. But everything seems to be going well. They seem to like Alex. Alex seems to like them. They have a nice conversation, and then Tim's mom takes him out, and she's basically like, if you're having any doubts, don't do it, but I like her. She seems like a nice girl, and I'm excited for you. Once again, Garrett and Taylor are being cute and unproblematic, so we were going to skip that scene, but they go to this place where they do calligraphy and make signs for their wedding. Back with Hannah and Nick, I don't know what they're doing. They're at some indoor obstacle course, skydiving or something, but this is one of the first of many times that Hannah asks Nick. From here on out, she's going to keep asking him, are you ready to get married? And every single time he says, yeah, I think I am. I feel like she's trying to set a trap for him and he's not falling for the bait. She wants him to admit that he's not ready to get married so that she can blame him for the relationship breaking up. He's not going to do that because he wants to get married. I don't know if he wants to get married to her anymore, but if he said he was going to marry her, he's going to do it, you know. But then she starts getting on him and she's like, well, how can you feel like you are ready to get married when there's so much stuff that you don't know? And he's basically saying, like, I mean, I know that I'm not on your level in terms of maturity or knowledge or whatever, but I'm learning and I'm working on getting there. And this is when he starts to kind of push back against her, because this whole time she's been criticizing him, berating him, saying things about him. And he finally says to her, like, I know I'm not on your level, but sometimes it feels like you're just talking down to me and condescending to me. And I want to feel like an equal in this relationship. And she says, you can get treated like an equal when you start contributing like an equal. In the hypothetical arena where they're like paying for this apartment that they live in and they have bills that they have to share between themselves and whatnot, she don't have no job. So like, if he's the only one making all the money, how can you say he's not contributing? And that's just on the like monetary level. Whatever she says to him, he basically just says, yes, dear. Or at least as far as we've seen on screen. He'll say, you don't know anything, you're so immature, you're so dumb, whatever. He'll just be like, yes, dear. And just take it. And the fact that Nick, until episode 10, has never really, as far as we've seen, said, no, I don't accept this thing that you're saying about me. She doesn't respect him anymore. Next up, we are with Marissa and Ramses, and they are talking about their marriage, their wedding to be specific. She says that she doesn't want there to be an aisle, and this is when I start to notice that Ramses is kind of like condescending to her. Like, it kind of seems like he feels like he's above her. Because he's like, well, how are we going to get to the altar? Are we going to descend from the heavens? You know, there's like sides. You can walk in from the sides. Like, you don't have to come in from the back to the front. She has all these like fun, cool ideas about the wedding, and he's like, go girl, give us nothing. And I don't know. It makes me kind of sad to watch. After Marissa and Ramses are talking about their wedding and he's kind of like shooting down her ideas for it, we meet up with Tim and Alex again. I'm not gonna lie to you, this is one of the more infuriating scenes that I've ever seen on this show. So, from what we see, right, Tim says, he brings Alex over. She's trying to eat her food. He says, can you come sit down and talk to me? He expresses that he's upset that after his parents left, he said, as soon as the cameras were down, you went to go take a nap. I felt like that was very disrespectful. They drove 10 hours here to see you, and then you go to sleep at the first opportunity that you can. Okay. I mean, depending on how long she was asleep, okay, but like, sure, whatever. And he starts saying all this other stuff about how they haven't been talking a lot, they weren't being very communicative, and she's like, I'm gonna stop you right there, because that's not the truth. He's like, can you stop interrupting me? Like, can you let me speak? He finishes his little spiel, whatever. It ends with, right now, if you were to ask me if we were getting married, the answer for me is no. She says, oh, okay. She's basically like, all right. And he's staring at her like, that's it. Then she's like, I mean, I have a lot that I want to say, but if your mind is made up, I don't really see the point, which is fair. Why am I going to beg a man to be engaged to me or to marry me when I done already begged him once before? Like, if you don't want to be with me, you don't want to be with me. But he's like, if there's something that you want to say, you can go ahead and say it. Like, I'm here listening. And she astutely asks, are you listening to hear or are you listening to try and move forward? Like, are we going to be able to come back from this? Or are you just saying we're never going to be together again, because why would I waste my breath if that's the case? Said, I want to understand. I'm always listening to understand. Whatever. She's trying to explain that she doesn't like that he doesn't communicate things with her. He's expecting her to behave in a certain way, very Virgo, but he's not telling her what that way is, and then punishing her when she does not read his mind. And then he starts talking about how he was annoyed that she didn't wash the dishes after he done cooked all this food for her family when they came to visit. Baby, what that got to do with anything? I didn't really understand this scene the same way I didn't really understand a lot of scenes from this season, but what it boils down to for me, is that Alex was trying to have a conversation with this man, talk to him on a same level, and he was trying to do his big one and like have his moment and then walk away. It's giving very Rob from Love Island season 6 going, now you sent 3 home. But they didn't send 3 home because you stayed. So, also happens to be a Virgo man. Just feels very, like, disingenuous, calculated. He was talking down to her. And from what we see, he broke up with her over a nap and some unwashed dishes. And it seems like it really steamed his beans that she wasn't going to fight him. Like, it seems like he was prepared for her to be like, oh, baby, please stay with me, try my mama. Like she had earlier. But she was literally just like, I mean, if that's what you want, that's what you want. Bye. I especially think it steamed his beans because the last thing he said to her is, I don't ever want to see you again. Why the escalation? How did we go from, I found it disrespectful that you took a nap when my parents were here and that you didn't wash the dishes after I had been cooking all day to, I don't ever want to see you again. Like, what's the truth? Baby, like, what's the real tea? I have to believe that there was something more between them that went wrong than those 2 things, because otherwise he's being absolutely the fuck insane. Anyways, we're getting ready for a Gatsby themed meet and greet from the people who were in the pods who didn't end up getting engaged and the people who were in the pods who are engaged. There's some like very unsubtle Amazon Prime placement. Like all their outfits came from Amazon. I'm like, okay. But Nick and Hannah are talking and Nick is like, well, do you feel like you need closure from anybody? And Hannah is like, no. Do you? Nick says, well, yeah, I kind of want to talk to Kate. You know, we had a really strong connection in the pods and I thought it was going somewhere. And then one day, all of a sudden, I just hadn't heard from her again. So I want to talk to her and see what happened. And Hannah's like, okay, well, you know, Kate's my best friend and I feel fine with my decision. I don't need closure on anything. I'm totally okay. So once again, it's clear that someone's beans are steamed because their fiance is not behaving in the way that they expected them to. Outside the party, Garrett and Taylor are fighting. They're fighting because Garrett's ex messaged him on Instagram and he hearted the message. And Taylor is upset that he had any communication with his ex. She mentions that she's been cheated on before. So I think that is where the like main point of insecurity is. But I'm not going to lie. I watched this scene and I was like, I don't understand what the problem was. We'll get into some more stuff later. It doesn't make it a bigger problem, but it does just like illuminate some issues. But I really was like, she's standing outside crying because he liked a message from his ex. And it just sucks. It seems like it was really bad timing. The vibe that I get, Garrett was not up to anything shady. He literally was just like trying to not ghost this woman that he used to be in a relationship with because he didn't want to be rude. And Taylor is like, that's not okay with me. Any communication with exes is not okay with me. I feel disrespected and I'm really angry at you. Which then gets into this thing with Pisces where like, it doesn't matter if you explain things to them. It doesn't matter if you like apologize. They're still going to be mad because they were mad. But they still go inside the party. They're going to schmooze with their friends and talk. Marissa ends up meeting Bowden and she's like, I just get a friend vibe from him. Like, there's nothing romantic going on here. I'm glad I got to meet him, but just friends. Taylor and Ashley, who've been besties since the pods, are like sitting at a table with Garrett and Tyler talking about the misunderstanding. And they're the perfect ones to talk about that because guess who else lied about something? During that conversation, Garrett slips up and ends up saying that he didn't just like the message from his ex. He also sent her a message back. And learning this information sets Taylor off. She's like, I need to be left alone. Like, I can't deal with this right now because why didn't you just tell me that from the beginning? So she walks off and Ashley's like, ooh. And Tyler's like, ooh. And everyone is uncomfortable. Speaking of uncomfortable, Hannah is sitting at the table with Ashley talking to her in minute detail about her sex life with Nick. She's like, oh, he doesn't like to eat cat. I've been with people before who are super explorative and he's just not very explorative. And he only really cares about like getting one for himself and he never like pays attention to me. And I'm like, why are you... I've never felt so embarrassed watching a scene of Love is Blind. And it almost feels like she knew what she was doing. Like she knew, like maybe she didn't think they were going to leave this whole conversation in because they don't really cut in this conversation. They leave the whole conversation in. But it's like, oh my God, why are you saying all of this? I didn't want to know all of this about their sex life. Like, I I don't know. I just see Hannah as someone who is, because she's so intelligent and she makes a point of saying how intelligent she is all the time, she also comes off very calculated. And I can't imagine that she said all of this stuff on camera, because we know they have had plenty of conversations and plenty of fights with one another off camera. Can't imagine she said all this stuff on camera without thinking that they would use even a second of it. Oh yeah, Tim and Alex is there, and she's like, I don't give a fuck about Tim. And Tim is there, and seems like he's like, damn, she don't give a fuck about me. And I liked that. Then Nick comes up to talk to Katie because they're having their little conversation, and Hannah is concerned because earlier in the night Katie had walked up to her and been like, oh my god, Nick D is so much more attractive in person, like I wasn't expecting him to be this hot. And now Hannah is questioning her best friendship with Katie because she's like, are you really my friend, Katie? Like, why did you have to tell me 1,000 times that my fiance's hot? Not to mention that Hannah like had not agreed with her a single time when she said that. She just was like, okay. But yeah, Nick and Katie are talking, and she's basically giving him a pep talk. She's like, look, I know you lead with this like suave, charming persona, but you're so much more than that, and you should really lead with that, because the suave, charming BS feels like a coping mechanism. It feels like a defense. And he's like hyping her up, and she's hyping him up, and it seems really sweet. Like they're gonna like bro out and go to a Ravens game. I'm excited to see their like friendship flourish potentially. I think it was the pep talk that he needed. Like, he spends all his days getting berated by Hannah for, like, what he's not doing. It is probably nice for someone to look at him and say, look, I see all of this good stuff in you. You deserve good stuff. Meanwhile, Garrett and Taylor are still fighting about the text from the ex, and there's kind of like a cliffhanger insinuating that maybe they won't make it to the aisle because she's like, there's just too many red flags. We open up with Hannah and Nick in their little apartment, and Hannah is really curious about what Nikki D was talking to Katie about. She's like, Katie is my best friend. What were you talking to her about? He's initially being kind of cagey, like he won't tell her what they were talking about, but then finally he's just like, I just asked her, like, we saw each other the first 3 days, and that fourth day I didn't see you. I wanted to know why. She explained why. I said okay. And then Hannah's like, okay, so what you just explained was like 3 seconds of a conversation. Why were you talking for 40 minutes? And he's like, well, I think she's really dope. Like, basically, we had a lot to talk about. And Hannah's like, yeah, she's my best friend. And he goes, well, if she's your best friend, why don't you go ask her what we talked about? So then Hannah's talking to him, and she's like, I was going to show you my fun side tonight, Nick. I was so excited to show you my fun side tonight. But then 3 separate times, Katie comes up to me and she says, oh, Nicky D is just so cute. He's exactly the type of guy I would be interested in. Oh my gosh, he's just so cute. How am I supposed to show you my fun side now? Because Katie did that. Because y'all went off and talked for 40 minutes. What does one have to do with the other, mama? Just whip it out if you're going to whip it out. If not, leave it at home. She's saying all this stuff to him, and he finally says back to her, like, why are we even talking about this? Like, do you not trust me? She's like, it's not that I don't trust you. I don't know if I trust you. I don't know if I trust Katie. If that's your best friend, bitch, why don't you trust her? He's like, I'm here with you. I'm engaged to you. I told Katie several times, I'm really happy with you. I'm so excited to be getting married to you. What is the issue here? She's like, it's about respect, Nick. It's about respect. Finally, he says, like, we're getting married. We're getting engaged. I love you. Who is a fuck what Katie thinks? Who is a fuck if Katie thinks I'm hot? I don't care about that shit. Like, that don't have nothing to do with us. Which, in a normal situation, I would be like, why are you deflecting? But with Hannah, I'm like, eat her up. And then Hannah says again, like, I was so excited to show you my fun side, Nick. And now, how am I supposed to do that now with what's happened? And Nick is like, okay, well, who ruined that? Because it wasn't me. And that shut her the fuck up. She was like, oh my god, look at my feet. My feet look psychotic right now. I use that as the test case of when you come at bitches like this with any kind of actual argument, any kind of like counter argument to what they're saying, they will just back down. They will just shut up because they don't actually want to fight. They don't actually want to be in this like like top dog position in the relationship. They want you to prove that you can make them submit, I guess. Look, I'm not saying that it's okay. I'm just saying this is a pattern that I have observed. So she's completely disengages from the conversation. As soon as he starts like bringing up good points and saying like, you consistently put me down, you consistently talk negatively to me, I have a conversation with someone who's really kind to me, and all of a sudden you have a problem. Then all of a sudden she's sleeping and she wants to go to bed. Okay, girl. Taylor and Garrett go to San Diego to meet Taylor's family, and it goes really well, even though her family is still very skeptical about the whole experiment aspect of this marriage. Tyler and Ashley are at a go-karting track that I have been to before, and Marissa and Ramses are very excitedly filling out their marriage license online. Back with Hannah and Nick, Hannah is introducing Nick to her girls, and she's really excited for them to meet him. She clearly had a conversation with them before this meeting, telling them all the problems that she had in the relationship with him. And they clearly went into it being like, if he's not going to act right on his own, we're going to make him do it. So they basically like do the Spanish Inquisition. Not that bad, of course, but like they're just hammering him with questions, being like, because Hannah asks him again, are you ready to get married? And he's like, yeah, I think so. I'm ready to get married. And she's like, well, are you ready to get married to me? He's like, what are you talking about? And all her girlfriends are just like, have you considered this? Have you thought of this? If you can't do this, how do you think you're ready to get married? Why do you think you're ready to get married? Because of this. You're just so immature, and the way that you talk to her, and the way that you do this, and the way that you do that. And he's just sitting there like, what the I thought I was coming to lunch. Like, I didn't know that I was getting interrogated. And he's like, you keep asking me if I'm ready to get married to you, but you have all these problems with me. You have all these reservations about me. And he like lists off a bunch of stuff, and he's like, are you ready to get married to me? Like, it seems like you want me to change who I am in order to be in a relationship with you. And her friends are kind of like, she doesn't want you to change who you are. Those are just actions. Those are things that are really easy to do. Walk the dog. Just do it. Be socially aware. Just do it. No, some of those things that he listed, they are like fundamental parts of his personality that she wants him to change. And she doesn't seem ready to marry him. So he's like, he basically is calling her out for projecting. I'm not gonna lie to you, I basically skip all of Taylor and Garrett's scenes because I'm like, they're getting married. Like, it's cute, fun, whatever, they're getting married. But they meet Taylor's mom. Back to Hannah, she's sitting on the couch with her mom, and she's like, you know, Nick, he doesn't match me intellectually, he doesn't match my humor, he doesn't match my maturity. I don't want to marry him. So she's getting ready to break up with him. They're getting ready to film the breakup. She's decided, like, the conversation with her friends was the final nail in the coffin. I mean, me personally, if my friends were interrogating my fiance like that at a lunch, I would be like, can y'all relax? Like, can you talk to him like he's a human being, not like he's a dog? But that's me. I'd also probably only be engaged to someone who I like, so. But finally, like, the mask comes off, her disdain for him is shown, and she knows that he's gonna go to the altar, and she knows that he's gonna say yes. So she finally just has to call it and be like, I'm not doing this anymore, like, we're not getting married. And her excuse is that her friends don't like him. It's not that she hates him and that she doesn't like him. It always has to be something outside of her. Like, she keeps asking him, are you ready to get married? So that he can say that he's not, so that he can break up with her. Or she can break up with him because of him. But no. Finally, she's like, I can't do this anymore because my friends don't like him. It's not because I don't like him. I hate her ass. Then we have the obligatory wedding dress try-ons and tux fittings. Marissa, Taylor, and Ashley are the only ones who have made it, as are their respective fiancés, Ramses, Garrett, and Tyler. I cannot believe I was able to say those in order. As usual, I fast forward through this because I don't give a fuck. The dresses are pretty, the women are pretty, the tuxes I don't care about, but like, yeah, they look nice. And it's nice to see them bond with their family. I do want to say we get to see more of Marissa's mom's human side during this. She's really sweet to her during the dress try-on. But back to the drama. Nick and Hannah are at their apartment breaking up. And she's really trying to eat him up, and he looks terrified. Like, back at the lunch with her friends, he looked like he was, like, stopping himself from crying, like he was on the verge of tears. And here, it's not any better. And so she starts listing out the things that she wrote down in the hotel that were concerns for her, and she's like, those were my concerns then, and those are my concerns now. Well, bitch, it's been, like, a month. What are you talking about? So you expected him to find that list and completely change who he was as a person so that he could earn the right to be married to you. Go marry someone that you like. And she's again like talking down to him, condescending. She's like, I have specific examples for my issues. I don't know if you have specific examples for yours. And he's finally coming back at her. He's like, you're always demeaning me. You're always talking down to me. You act like you're above me. Like, this is not good. And she's doing that rhetorical strategy of basically trying to make someone dig their own grave, but it's not working because he actually has answers for the question she's asking. She's like, what are your responsibilities? When do you take initiative? He's like, I can tell you. My responsibilities are to pay for my car, to pay for my car insurance, and to feed my cat. I take initiative every day when I go to work because I work in fucking real estate. Real estate, things are getting handed to you in real estate. You have to take initiative. He said, my responsibilities are to be the best friend and the best son that I can possibly be. And it's clear that she, like, kind of calculated this, right? Like, she brings up on camera that when she called him to say that she wanted to break up, the first thing that he said was, I want to make a game plan so that you don't make me look bad. And he's like, yeah, I did want to make a game plan because I knew you were going to fucking berate me on camera and like come with a notebook and a list full of shit that I did wrong. And then she has the audacity to go into her talking head and say that she feels manipulated by him. I know reality TV, I know editing, but this just feels like a case of a woman who really thought she was going to eat this man up and failed at every turn. Whatever storyline she was trying to self-produce, it didn't work out. Because all we come away with is a sweet boy who's trying his best and his fiance who's trying her best to hammer him into the ground. Go to the next video for the end of episode 11 and episode 12, how it all turns out. Hannah and Nick have just broken up, right? He's trying his best to keep himself from fucking crying. And we smash cut to Marissa and Ramses on a boat. I'm not gonna say that I could tell what was coming up, but like he looks checked out and she's not. Tyler and Ashley go skydiving, and it would be cute if we didn't know what we know now. Taylor and Garrett go to the planetarium, and it is cute because they're adorable. But then at the end of the episode, we sadly cut back to Marissa and Ramses. They're having a really vague conversation that I don't understand, but what it seems to be boiling down to is that Ramses is having doubts. So we open episode 12 with the continuation of this conversation. He's saying to her, I don't question whether I love you or not. I just don't want to go into another thing to get divorced. He's talking about how he talked to his brother and his sister-in-law, and he saw his nephew, and he learned that his ex-wife was actually doing a lot worse after the divorce than he thought. To which I say, sir, you got divorced. What did you did you think she was going to be skipping through the fields and sniffing sunflowers? Like, of course she was doing horribly. She's talking to him. She's having a conversation with him because she doesn't understand what he's getting at, right? And he won't just say it outright. I can say a lot about Tim, and I don't enjoy that man. But he, at the very least, said outright to Alex at the beginning of or whenever their conversation was happening, I don't want to marry you. Ramses is not doing that. Because Marissa is going back and forth with him. She keeps saying, like, this is the risk of falling in love. If you're having doubts, that's okay. Like, I know this is a very accelerated experience, but we love each other, so it's okay. And he is, like, just foisting responsibility. So Marissa's trying to talk to him because this feels like one of the multiple conversations they've had about having doubts or whatever. Finally, he starts to talk about the issues that he's having. He's like, well, you know, your energy is just a lot. I just feel like in the long term, like day-to-day stuff for us living together, it's just not going to be. And that's when she starts to realize, like, oh. He's basically telling her that she's too much for him to handle, which I would rather somebody tell me that than continue to allow me to make a fool of myself behind them. However, his delivery was so evil and bitch made. She says, he's like, it was fine in the pods, it was fine in Cabo, and then just the day-to-day stuff is what started to get to me. And she's like, that's what everybody says. Everyone that I date has a great time with me for the first few weeks, and then at a certain point, I'm just too much. I just become too much. And they are talking for hours about this. The sun is up when they start the conversation. It's down by the time they end it, but she's finally like, okay, you don't want to marry me. Like, this is over. He lets her come to that conclusion instead of just saying out of his mouth, I don't want to marry you. And the most heartbreaking part is at the end of this whole conversation, they're like hugging to say goodbye, and she breaks down and she's like, no, I don't want to do, like, no, are you sure? Are you sure? Like, she's sobbing, crying, falling down on the floor, and I can see him trying to squeeze out a single tear. I hate it. I hate it. I hate it. It was almost too much. Like, I was like, I don't think we need to see all of this that involves her crying. I would have liked to have seen like some scenes of her, because I saw a TikTok, her mom and sister came over to the apartment the next day. Like, I would have liked to have seen a talking head of him explaining the breakup like we got with Nick and Hannah, or like her calling Hannah and Hannah coming over. Something other than this like very personal, very intimate expression of devastation. She crashed out. And I would too. Like, I have before. I think anyone who's been there watched that scene and was like, oh fuck, I can't handle this. And anyone who hasn't watched that scene and was like, should I be watching that? But getting to the weddings anyway, I'm not gonna talk too much about Ashley and Tyler's wedding because I literally sat and watched it like I was watching a train wreck. The realization slowly dawned on me that the fact that he lied to her about having children wasn't going to sway her. And she probably didn't know all the information that the internet learned over the course of the show coming out, so she was absolutely going to say yes. The thing that did gag me was her saying that her intuition is always on point. If it was, your intuition would have told you not to marry this man, who lied to you by omission in the pods by not telling you about his kids, and then lied to your face about the fact that they don't know him. But anyway, they get married, and I was gonna say if you like it, I love it, but anyways, on to Taylor and Garrett. It's one of my favorite weddings I've seen on the show. It's clear that there's going to be like a real coming together of two families, and it's like there's few couples on the show that make me feel like, oh, this show was created for this person to find their soulmate. I feel that way about Lauren and Cameron from season 1. There's few, but Garrett and Taylor are absolutely one of them. Oh, also Tiffany and Brett from season 4 or 5. And honestly, like Kwame and Chelsea, like that was a sleeper hit, but I really think that they were made for each other. So Taylor's dad goes into the groom suite to help Garrett with his bow tie, and it's a really sweet scene where he's talking to him about how he's like wearing his brother's tie to this wedding, and like Taylor was really there for him when he lost his brother, and he's like, got married 35 years ago, I had 8 groomsmen, I only have 4 left. It's so important, those moments that you get through with your family. And then Garrett's parents are talking to him, and they're still a little like, meh, but they're also excited because Garrett seems excited and like he's definitely getting married. So, and then we find out that Garrett and Taylor are getting married on the 13th. I assume it was the 13th of October or the 13th of November. I don't really know which, but they're getting married on the 13th, and Taylor's parents also got married on the 13th, which is like weird serendipity. It just feels like one of those moments where like the universe really conspired to get these two people into each other's lives. And I hope that they have long, flourishing, beautiful lives together. It's actually kind of like making me choke up. Like, they were one of my favorite couples that has ever been featured on the show. And I'm just really glad they both said yes to each other at the altar, of course. And I was just really glad that they found each other. Their vows to one another were beautiful. Like, I was like, oh my God, is love blind? It might be, because like looking at Taylor's dad and Garrett next to each other, Taylor's dad has a port wine stain, Garrett has a port wine stain. They both have that like receding hairline and the V thing. Their heads are similar shapes. I was like, she didn't know what he looked like going into it, but she somehow ended up with a guy who looks kind of like her dad. What the fuck? But yeah, that is Love is Blind, season 7. It was one of the messiest seasons of the show so far. Of course, it had to be the one that was in DC. It was just full of baby mama drama and cheating scandals and fake-ass leftist men who gaslight their fiancés into whatever. But I hope that summary saved you however much time watching the actual show would have. And I'll be back to tell you what happens in the reunion.